In this video, we will be talking about the impact of the traditional media, as we have been discussing the relationship between media and politics. So let's talk about the impact of the traditional media. The impact of the traditional media on democracy is one of the most widely debated aspects of the relationship between media and politics. So, what is the impact? For many, the existence of a free press is one of the key features of democratic governance. However, how do the media act as custodians of democracy? This is a very pertinent question to ask here. And to repeat, how do the media act as custodians of democracy? And why have some questioned the media's democratic credentials, even arguing that they may undermine it? So let's talk about all these things, keeping these questions in view. To begin with, the media has traditionally been said to promote democracy in two key ways: by fostering public debate and political engagement, and by acting as a public watchdog to check abuses of power. So, there is one important term before we proceed, and that is called pre-press. What do we mean by that? Preface is something which include newspapers and by that extension other media outlets that are free from censorship and political interference by government and usually are privately owned. So, having clarified this term called pre-press, let's talk again about the influence of traditional media. So, the capacity to provide a civic forum in which meaningful and serious political debate can take place is often viewed as the key democratic role of the media. The virtue of this is better informed citizens with more independent and considered views will be more politically engaged. The media are therefore agents of political education. We can treat them like that. Indeed, the media may have largely replaced formal representative institutions such as assemblies, parliaments, and local councils as arenas for the dialogue, debate, and deliberation. That are the very stuff of democratic politics. All these institutional mechanisms are this stuff of democratic politics. This has happened because the media are arguably better suited to their role than our traditional representative bodies. Additionally, in addition to offering the public perhaps its only meaningful opportunity to watch politicians in action through, for example, interviews with politicians and televised assembly debates. The media provide a forum for the expression of a much wider range of viewpoints and opinions than is institutions than with, is possible within representative institutions composed only of elected politicians. So this is how media is influencing. Thus, academics and scientists, business leaders and trade union bosses, and representatives of interest groups and lobbyists of all kinds are able to express views and engage in public debate through the mechanism of media. Not only do the media substantially widen the range of views and opinions expressed in political debate, but they also present debate and discussion in a way that is lively and engaging for the general public, which are devoid of the formality, even stiffness, that characterizes the exchanges that take place in assemblies and council chambers around the world. So, the watchdog role of the media, in a sense, a subset of the political debate argument. Okay, so the role of the media from this perspective is to ensure that public accountability takes place by scrutinizing the activities of government and exposing abuses of power. Once again, in carrying out this role, the media is supplementing and to some extent replacing the work of formal representative institutions. Media professionals such as researchers, journalists, and television presenters are particularly suited to this role because they are outside politics and have no interest other than to expose incompetence, corruption, or simply muddled thinking whenever and wherever it can be found. By contrast, if public accountability is left solely in the hands of professional politicians, it may be constrained by the fact that those who attempt to expose inaptitude or wrongdoing wish themselves at some stage to hold government power. This may not only taint their motives, but it may also discourage them from criticizing processes and practices that they may wish to take advantage of it in the future. However, the media can only perform this role effectively if they are properly independent and not dominated by government. Democratic governance, therefore, requires either that the publicly financed media are accountable to an independent commission or that there is an appropriate level of competition from free or privately financed media. The example of WikiLeaks nevertheless highlights how controversial the media watchdog role can be in practice. However, reservations have also been expressed about the capacity of the media to promote effective democratic governance. The first of these, as advanced by dominant ideology and elite value theorists, these models we have discussed somewhere in other videos. So please take a look at those videos, those models. So the dominant ideology and elite value theorists are highlighting this that far from providing citizens with a wide and balanced range of political views, the content of the media is tainted by clear political biases. Whether political bias stems from the opinions and values of editors, journalists, and broadcasters, or from more general alignment between the interests of the media owners or the media and those of economic and social elites. It is difficult to see how the media's duty to provide objective information and um, remain faithful to public service principles can be discharged reliably and consistently in practice. In this respect, particular emphasis has been placed on the implications of media ownership and the fact that the views and interests of major corporations or powerful media moguls cannot but at some level influence media output. Insofar as the media affects the political agenda, this agenda is likely to be politically conservative and at least compatible with the interests of dominant groups in society. Second, as the mass media is not subject to public accountability, it is the classic example of power without responsibility. However well informed, knowledgeable, and stimulating the views of journalists and broadcasters may be, and however eager they may be to portray themselves as the voice of the people, media professionals, unlike elected politicians, represent no one other than themselves and have no meaningful basis for claiming to articulate public opinion. Thirdly, there are reasons for doubting the independence of the media from government. All too often, a symbolic relationship develops between media professionals and the political elite, which constrains both the mass media's political views and their capacity to act as an effective watchdog. Apart from its impact, for good or ill, on democracy, the prominence of the mass media in an information age has affected the processes of governance through transformation of political leadership. The main way, or the chief way, in which the media has transformed political leadership is through growing interest in the personal lives and private conduct of senior political figures, at the expense of serious and sober policy and ideological debates. This, in part, stems from the media's, and particularly television's, obsession with image rather than issues, and with personality rather than policy. In the UK and other parliamentary systems, it is evident in a tendency towards presidentialization or Americanization of politics. What is presidentialization? Let's make it clear. Presidentialization is used here as a growing emphasis on personal leadership in line with the role and powers of an executive president. So, how it influences? What is this presidentialization causing? These kind of trends reflect not so much conscious bias on the part of the media as an attempt to self politics to a mass audience that is deemed to be little interested in issues and policies. This also accounts for the tendency to treat electors or elections as horse races, the public's attention being focused less on the policy significance of the outcome and more on who is going to win. So these two tendencies invariably coincide, turning elections into beauty contests between leading politicians. Each of them serves as a brand image of their party. Leaders are therefore judged largely on the basis of their televisual skills, relaxed manner, sense of humor, ability to demonstrate the popular touch, and so on, rather than their mastery of political issues and capacity for serious political debate. Hmm. There can be little doubt that the advent of the media age has changed the behavior of political leaders as well as affected the career prospects of individual politicians. For example, presidential factors such as personal appearance, hairstyle, dress sense, and so on have become more important in determining political preferment or advancement. However, such developments have not merely changed the face of modern politics, they have recorded power relationship in such a manner by reordering power relationship both within the political executive and between the executive and the assembly. The growth of celebrity politics gives presidents, prime ministers, and other party leaders the ability to make personalized appeals to the voters, creating the phenomenon of spatial leadership, which allows leaders to appeal over the heads of their senior colleagues, parties, and government institutions directly to the public. Furthermore, the messages that they give and the policy and ideological stances they adopt are increasingly determined by leading politicians personally supported, it appears, by an ever expanding band of public relations consultants, spin doctors, media managers, pollsters, and publicity directors. So these are the things. But before we move on, let's talk about celebrity politics. Why do we use term? What does that mean? Celebrity politics here is understood either of both the cultivation of celebrityhood by elected politicians or interventions by stars of popular culture into the political domain. And one more term which we used is spatial leadership, This is the tendency of political leaders to distance themselves from their parties and governments by presenting themselves as outsiders or developing their own political stance or ideological positions. One of the consequences of this is that junior politicians may have an additional reason for deferring uh, to their leaders. Their fear of damaging their leaders' image and reputation. If the leader is damaged, especially by splits and internal criticism, all members of his or her party or government suffer. Political power thus comes to be structured on the basis of publicity and media attention received by individual politicians. The greater the media attention, the greater the political leverage. However, media attention is far from an unqualified benefit for political leaders, although their triumphs and successes can be publicly trumpeted, their flaws, failings and transgressions can also be ruthlessly exposed. Indeed, the ultimate vulnerability of contemporary political leaders may well be that negative media coverage may turn them into electoral liabilities, encouraging their parties and colleagues to remove them in order to save the party or their own political careers. Okay, so this is the impact of traditional media on politics. We'll be talking about other things at other occasions.